Have you ever felt the sting of betrayal? Imagine on a business trip far from home, installing cameras for the family's safety, only to have your phone reveal the most heart-wrenching deceit. An unfamiliar man in my home, intimate embraces with my wife, the person I trusted most. The battle for our 3 children's custody unfolded from shocking DNA results. Every photo, every message, each piece of evidence was a dagger to my heart. Yet this narrative is more than betrayal. This is my story. Enjoy watching it. We made an effort to instill a sense of respect in our children during their formative years. It had to be learned through demonstration, not just instruction, in order to be truly earned. I acquired the knowledge through personal experience during my upbringing, yet my parents never imparted it to me. I was 11 years old, and it was a bitterly cold winter. My father invited his best friend to stay with us during the winter due to the treacherous conditions on the country roads. My older sister was placed in my bedroom, as her own room had 2 twin beds that we could utilize. In the stillness of the night, I awoke to the sound of their presence in the adjacent bed, engaged in an undisclosed activity. She noticed my presence and sternly commanded him to be quiet, prompting me to lie down and drift off into slumber. Her words held a weight of truth. I complied with the request. The following day, I inquired about it from her. She vehemently denied its occurrence. It feels as though it was all just a figment of my imagination. After a fortnight had passed, I once again discovered their presence, but this time in the bed where my parents once shared their lives. My younger sister was the product of their relationship, a figure from my past. I was forced to become the family's deceiver, concealing the truth to shield her. My father raised my half-sister as his own, but in an attempt to cope with the pain, he succumbed to the grip of whiskey. I soon discovered that the truth held little significance for the majority of individuals. It held significance for me. And still, my disdain for liars persists. I offered no support nor justification for them. To those who were familiar with me, it often seemed as though I was a total liability. My heart aches as I reflect on the painful consequences my son faced for choosing silence over communication. Engaging in conversation with his mother amplified minor issues into significant ones. Whenever she reached me first, they suddenly turned into urgent matters. His mother had a way of knowing just how to provoke him, making the past 2 years incredibly challenging for him. However, he eventually revealed his true feelings to me. He came to understand that taking on responsibility came at a cost. He celebrated his 16th birthday this year and had his heart set on getting his very first car. He was the eldest of 3 children. My youngest brought home a dreadful winter cold, which she kindly passed on to me. I found myself awake, enduring the torment of coughing fits, aimlessly flipping through TV channels in search of something that could capture my attention. I reached out to my friend to inquire about the possibility of police cameras having the capability to automatically send video footage to a designated email address once the storage was full. After a couple of days, he reached out to me and shared details about a product that fulfilled the desired purpose. However, it was not as affordable as expected and had limited functionality. Having access to free Wi-Fi would have been a relief, but unfortunately, these devices ended up costing me over $2,000. I had him deliver them to my office at work, along with the new laptop I had ordered for personal use. I spent a significant amount of time on remote locations, overseeing commercial shoots for the advertising firm I was employed by. The firm's main shareholders happened to be identical twin brothers. 2 individuals were known as Robert and Stephen Walker. Stephen was notorious for his risky habits and had never entered into matrimony. Our connection appeared to be strong. After dedicating countless years to their cause, I found myself reaping the rewards with a substantial 6-figure salary. Life seemed to be going well for me during my absence, if my wife required accompaniment. Robert, who is gay, was the brother who came forward. It presented him with a chance to enhance his public perception. On Friday afternoon, David Peters made an unexpected visit to my office, bringing along a few additional items for me to review. He instructed me to create an email address in the cloud where the videos would be sent. Thus, I forged a fresh account solely for that purpose. The cameras were incredibly small, barely larger than a diamond stud. All of them are activated by motion. One of them was embedded in the earrings. They had an impressive endurance, capable of running for an entire week without needing to be recharged. The recharging process was conveniently done wirelessly, triggered by the detection of a signal. She simply had to remove them and place them back in the box. She diligently recorded the ID number for each camcorder and meticulously documented everything they received. He inquired about the purpose behind my request. I expressed my sense of unease, a haunting feeling that something was amiss, yet I remained uncertain of the exact cause. I yearned to investigate and confirm whether my gut feeling was indeed accurate. On Sunday night, I had a flight scheduled for yet another trip. On Sunday, I gave Deborah, my wife of nearly 8 years, a pair of beautiful diamond earrings that gracefully hung from a stud. She adored them and made a heartfelt promise to wear them throughout my absence, just before heading to the airport. I made a brief visit to the office to gather a few essential items. I took the chance to leave a note in both of my boss's offices, indicating that I would contact them if any issues arose. I strategically placed a camera in every one of their offices, ensuring an unbroken view of their desks. Both were intricately linked to the sources they required. I embarked on a journey from the bustling streets of New York to the serene beauty of Whistler on the west coast of British Columbia. The purpose of my trip was to partake in a 2-week shoot for a captivating ski board commercial. Thankfully, the upper peaks were still covered in snow. I'm not a particularly tall individual, standing at a modest 5 feet 9 inches, weighing 166 pounds, with a 32-inch waist. According to Deborah, it is recommended that I wear socks designed for boys aged 3 to 9. Her wrist appeared to be thicker than mine. We stood at equal heights. She never wore heels in my presence. She possessed an admirable physique. However, anything larger than her mouth was beyond my capabilities. Her long blonde hair caught the eye of numerous suitors, only to leave them shattered and forgotten. Our life when I was home had a calm and steady rhythm. It appeared that our children followed the lead of her side of the family, leaving me with no room for skepticism. Due to our circumstances and urban environment, we made the decision to have our children undergo DNA testing. We also took their fingerprints as a precautionary measure. On Wednesdays, as I practiced karate, she attended the theater, and the remainder of our leisure hours were spent in each other's company. Every Friday, we would venture out for dinner and dancing, indulging in our shared passion for the rhythm and movement. We made it a priority to spend our weekends with the kids whenever we could. Deborah ran her own successful home interior decorating company, which provided her with a steady income. To ensure she never missed a call, she had an answering service in place for when she was away. There were moments when we were both overwhelmed with tasks and had to be away from home. Our parents arrived to help. Consequently, our children formed profound connections with both individuals. On Monday evening, I began reviewing the information that was sent to me, diligently providing daily updates on the company-provided laptop. As I cautiously opened mine, a sense of quietness enveloped me, as if the air itself held a heavy weight of sorrow and animosity. Inside, I found 3 messages that had been sent. One particular altercation that immediately captured my attention involved Stephen and Robert. "I've had enough," said Robert. "Being your inspiration so you can captivate. Deborah has lost her charm. Oh no, if Glenn ever discovers this, we're in big trouble. His exceptional work ethic and invaluable skills are crucial for our success. Without him, we stand to lose millions. Have you considered the potential loss of clients if he were to switch to our competitors? Please cease this immediately. I am unable to," said Stephen, he murmured softly. "My heart is consumed by affection for her. Deborah claims that I am the father of their 3 children. You're such a fool," Robert muttered. "I will consult our corporate lawyer to inquire about the necessary measures to safeguard our firm. If the truth is revealed, we will all face dire consequences. Glenn's intentions are to bring about destruction, and he believes he is justified in doing so." I retreated to the bathroom, consumed by an overwhelming sense of despair, to expel the contents of my stomach. I reached out to my older cousin Gordon, a highly sought-after divorce attorney, and managed to wake him up from his slumber. His reaction was far from positive when I shared with him the knowledge I had acquired. He instructed me to send all the videotapes I had received to him and assured me that he would begin taking action on his end. His initial priority was to obtain a sample of Stephen Walker's DNA. The videotapes themselves were deemed unusable, but the transcripts of the conversations held potential. He requested that I forward a copy of my company's human resources manual to his office. He requested my assistance in locating a notary public to transmit a power of attorney via fax. Tomorrow, I will involve the private investigator we are working with in this case. The truth will be revealed, unveiling the when, where, and how. It's fortunate that you're in Canada if you're not nearby. Things will become more manageable as their defenses are lowered. It might be wise to consider attending to their needs before you come back, if everything goes according to plan. I responded that it would likely be within a couple of weeks, although there is a possibility of it taking longer. The following morning, I reached out to my assistant who efficiently managed all my requirements throughout the shoot. I requested her to kindly send the instructions to my cousin's office. Nora reluctantly agreed and made a comment. "It seems you have discovered the truth after all." "Indeed." She expressed her intention to stay quiet for the time being, but assured me that she would be willing to provide testimony in my favor if needed. It appears that management was well aware. Afterwards, I made a visit to the family doctor's office to discuss the necessary arrangements for sending copies of my children's DNA to the lawyers. This was in relation to the drafting of a new bill. I made the payment using my credit card. One of our colleagues from Canada managed to secure a notary for the remainder of the week. I simply sent videos, fully aware that my cousin would provide a thorough explanation. For the remainder of the week, I found myself grappling with the inner turmoil of resisting the urge to visit the gym and instead seek solace in the embrace of alcohol. I finally grasped the agony my father endured. On Friday afternoon, after making plans for the weekend, I traveled to Vancouver by helicopter and then drove all night to New York. Once I had obtained a vehicle, I discreetly parked it on the adjacent street, just a stone's throw away from my humble abode. It was unexpected to witness our 3 children being collected by our relatives. After 30 minutes, Deborah emerged wearing a fresh dress, accentuating her figure with high heels that gracefully traced her silhouette. After she departed, I swiftly silenced my alarm clock and retreated to my office to retrieve what I referred to as 16 journals. Within these records lie the chronicles of my journeys, recounting the events and locations I have traversed. Those logs had come to my rescue on multiple occasions, from a legal standpoint. After some time, I found myself at Gordon's house, seated in his kitchen, engaged in a conversation about his recent discoveries. We anxiously awaited the completion of the comparative analysis, as a DNA sample had been taken from Steve. They had also stumbled upon the penthouse that the two had possessed for 22 long years. The neighbors believed they were an ordinary couple, unaware of their frequent presence, which led them to assume they worked unconventional hours. Every week, like clockwork, a house-cleaning company would make their way to their home. He possessed an affidavit that verified their status as a civil couple even prior to our encounter. The sole client of her firm specialized in acquiring low-cost apartment buildings, renovating them, and reselling them as fully furnished units to unsuspecting buyers at inflated prices. This company was completely under the ownership of Stephen Walker. The company's tax records revealed that Deborah's annual income after deducting expenses exceeded $500,000. However, she was only taking home less than $80,000 for herself. Are my children truly mine, or do they belong to someone else? It is yet to be determined. Gordon informed me that my mother would be picking up the kids next weekend, as I wasn't expected home until at least Monday. This news came after I discovered that Deborah had been playing me, and I couldn't help but wonder if she had done the same to Stephen. The whole situation left me with a deep sense of silence and melancholy, mixed with a tinge of hatred. We made a pact to set fire to the individual, their partner, and associates while they were in their main dwelling, their luxurious abode. I would remove from the house what I believed she deserved. I informed him of my arrival on Friday night. He would swiftly deactivate all the cards and withdraw a significant portion of our funds before they were legally restricted. On that fateful day, as I made my way back home, I returned to Canada to complete the filming, putting in double the effort. As I stepped off the plane on Saturday morning, Robert Walker awaited me at the airport. He was taken aback by my early completion of filming and perplexed by his inability to comprehend the urgency of our meeting. I sat alone with the company laptop, sipping my coffee in silence. As we sat there, we quietly discussed the upcoming trip and the tasks that awaited the editing department. A stranger approached and inquired if he was Robert Walker. Robert verified his identity, and the man coldly declared, "You have been served," before he could even utter a word. I handed him my laptop company, keys, credit cards, and pulled a letter of resignation out of my jacket. Later, I conveyed the news that his brother and my wife had also submitted their resignations. His complexion paled as he anxiously inquired about the severity of the situation. I responded by stating my intention to forcefully assert my position. I possess DNA evidence that unequivocally establishes Stephen as the biological father of all the children belonging to Deborah and myself. A couple is currently receiving assistance in their penthouse. Please be aware that there is a legal obligation for them to maintain a distance of 500 feet from my mother, children, and myself, as mandated by the court. I sensed that Robert was on the verge of losing his final opportunity. I rose from my seat and quietly made my way towards the exit. Robert aggressively attacked me before airport security could intervene. He lay on the floor, blood trickling down his face. His appearance would have lost its charm if not for the significant medical expenses. My mother and children greeted me upon my arrival at home. Quietly, the garage door creaks open. It was a difficult task to break the news to my two daughters and their brother that I was absent, a distant figure from my past. My mom became furious when I informed them that their mother was now with the man who had become their father in their love shack. I informed them that their relationship has endured longer than the duration of my marriage to your mother. You will remain in my presence until the court makes its decision following the completion of the interviews. The court will carefully consider the dynamics of all three of your parents' relationships with you before reaching a decision. We all felt a profound sense of loss and despair. My mother, sensing a presence at the door, cautiously approached and unlocked it. I replied that the external alarm was still active. I immediately contacted the authorities, informing them of my unexpected presence at home and the imminent threat of an intruder. They claimed to be already addressing the alarm, their response shrouded in a somber silence. I instructed the children to go upstairs. The front door was successfully opened. Stephen forcefully shattered the window of the imposing metal door, thrusting his hand through the opening in an attempt to release the chain lock, just as the police arrived. After capturing the intruders, the policeman approached the door and announced his presence. As I opened the door, the sight that greeted me was Stephen and Deborah, confined in handcuffs, silently occupying the back seat of the cruiser. I handed him a copy of the restraining order that had been served this morning when he mentioned her arrival. With a somber expression, he uttered, "It seems they will both be incarcerated until their encounter with the judge." After much reflection, my mother has finally acknowledged the mistakes she made in the past. Only when she witnessed my actions did she truly grasp the devastating consequences, not for me, but for her own grandchildren. I am just as flawed as Deborah. She mentioned that your father forgave me, but he was never quite himself again. If he hadn't passed away in an unfortunate industrial accident, it's hard to deny that our circumstances might have been different from where you find yourself today. Deborah and Steve's pictures graced the front page of the New York Post on Sunday morning, capturing the moment they were escorted to the police station. I conveyed to the reporter a comprehensive account of the events taking place on the court. I mentioned that I had no choice but to step down from the company due to Stephen's enduring involvement with my spouse. The publication is scheduled for Monday. The DNA comparison report confirmed the parentage of my children and the Walker brothers. She found satisfaction in the president of Walker's advertising betraying the moral principles he had once upheld by meddling in her marriage. The decision rested in the hands of the board of directors. After enjoying a late Sunday dinner at a local restaurant, Carl and Carla Matthews graciously accompanied us back to our home. Their grandmother kindly put my daughters to bed, allowing my father-in-law and I to have a conversation in my home office. According to Dad, Deborah and Steve's relationship began before I had the chance to meet Deborah. I discovered their relationship while I was in Canada. I proceeded to present him with a video clip featuring Robert and Steve engaged in conversation. He shook his head, filled with a profound sense of awe. His lack of knowledge was painfully evident to me. I presented him with the purchase documents for the penthouse, dating back 2 years prior to our marriage. Her maiden name was still listed on the condo's registration. Carl let out a frustrated exclamation. From the moment you said, "I do," your true colors were already evident. Upon witnessing that clip, I immediately took the necessary steps to secure the services of a lawyer and a private investigator. Both claimed it was effortless to uncover information about them, convinced that their safeguards were impenetrable and the truth would forever remain elusive. I whispered gently, assuring that the turmoil in my life would not taint the bond between Mom and you and our precious children. As he perused the court documents and reference materials, a heavy silence filled the room. I silently passed them to him, allowing him to delve into the contents. I went and purchased 2 generous servings of Irish whiskey over ice. What pained him deeply was coming across the conversation where Deborah openly confessed to a mutual friend about how easily her parents, sibling, and I had been deceived. From the moment I met Glenn, it was decided by Stephen and her that I would be the one to raise his children. I sensed his unwavering devotion to me. He was deeply infatuated with me to the point where he would believe anything. He was completely oblivious to the truth that lay right before his eyes, consumed by a profound sense of sorrow and animosity. Stephen found Glenn's keen eye for detail to be invaluable on set, making him the preferred choice for a wand. Steve noted that with Glenn's arrival, the cost of reshoots significantly decreased by 80%. The company experienced a significant boost in both reputation and profits. Glenn believed our home life was satisfactory. He was oblivious to any wrongdoing. Moreover, he excels as a father. Once Terry, my youngest, completes high school, I plan to initiate divorce proceedings and remove him from the equation. In order to accomplish that, I will utilize the escort services offered by Stephen's firm. He will remain oblivious to the inevitable end. Extracting information from him will be a simple task, she said quietly. I came back and witnessed my father-in-law in tears. Where did you acquire all of this information? Carl inquired. Truly. I opened my laptop in front of him, accessed my email, and clicked on the most recent email from Deborah Sell. I initiated the video file and activated its playback. Steve, this is incredibly exasperating, Deborah murmured, unsure of how Glenn had discovered the information. He insists that you are the father of the children, yet he has failed to provide any evidence. It appears to be the continued musings of his lawyer attempting to construct a legal argument. What we're facing is nothing more than an illusion. Sure, Steve replied quietly. However, Glenn stepped down and assisted Robert on Saturday. Is he going to be working for the company tomorrow? Only then will the truth reveal itself. It's fortunate that the judge received only a warning. Now I must contemplate what to convey to the board of directors. I must retrieve my office attire and personal possessions from the premises. Tomorrow I will begin the search for a divorce lawyer. One more decision I must make is how to approach my parents with the news. I must ensure that the blame for cheating falls solely on Glenn, not myself, and that you're simply a friend offering assistance. Do you believe they will be convinced? Seek guidance from Steve. It is evident that your children belong to me. There is no cause for them to question me, as they have never witnessed any wrongdoing on my part. Rest assured, their faith and trust in me remains unwavering. Her response came in a hushed whisper. If I have any uncertainties, tears will inevitably flow. My tears have always made them realize the truth. Throughout my life, I have forever remained Daddy's little girl. What about our 3 children? Would you like them to adopt my last name once we are married? Stephen inquired. Upon hearing this, I decided to stop watching the video as it stirred up strong emotions within me. I mentioned to them that Deborah's diamond earrings are equipped with a discrete camera that can be charged wirelessly. The captured data is then transmitted over Wi-Fi. It is important to note that the transmission only occurs when the earrings are fully charged, and there is a stable signal. Additionally, the data transmission is contingent upon Deborah wearing the earrings. Carla quietly entered and joined us. I presented her with a glass of wine, and once she agreed, I discreetly departed, allowing them to engage in a private conversation about the matter at hand. I arrived just in time to witness Carl repeating to her the conversation we had overheard. Carla's expression revealed a profound sense of sorrow and animosity. Mom whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. It appears that the divorce papers are indeed accurate. She betrayed me, But how much longer will this go on, enduring far beyond their union? Our grandchildren were brought into this world by the union of our daughter and Stephen, as my father has stated. I have witnessed the existence of the DNA report. My daughter Deborah has become invisible to me. She has forsaken everything our family has ever stood for. The lingering weight of the past burdens me, as the web of deceit she wove continues to haunt my thoughts. It is evident that she harbors no remorse for anything, unseen and unheard. I can't help but ponder how frequently we've separated the children from her, allowing her the freedom to indulge in her true passion. However, there are grandchildren. Tears streamed down Carla's face. I have a strong desire to hold on to them. Mom, should I be granted custody of them? You will forever have unrestricted access to them. I mentioned it to Daddy right from the beginning. I reassured her to ease her concerns. However, it would be advisable for both of you to seek legal recourse in order to secure unrestricted visitation rights with your grandchildren, irrespective of the custody outcome. We will all need to be taken to court. However, I believe it is the most prudent course of action. In this situation, you can inform Deborah that you will not choose sides until it is resolved. Be cautious not to allow your emotions to seal doors that may remain forever shut. Carl glanced in my direction and silently acknowledged his agreement. My dear, Glenn will forever remain a part of our family. I believe his insight on this matter is accurate. Carl acknowledged that despite the immense pain we all share, there is someone who selflessly prioritizes our needs. It appears that she and her lover have little regard for their children. Our daughter has been deceiving us for as long as she's been grown. Where did we lose our way? I have a question. Was Deborah being sincere when she confessed her love for Glenn to us? Mom uttered softly. Monday was a day filled with activity for me. I transported my 3 children to school and later occupied myself in the office, elucidating the circumstances. If my wife attempted to reach out to the children at school, it would not go unnoticed by the authorities. My soon-to-be ex has managed to secure a high-priced divorce attorney, while my former employer's firm is now facing a lawsuit. On Wednesday, my father-in-law terminated both Deborah and me. He informed me that his daughter was extremely angry and insisted that he drop his legal case. He expressed to her that she and her mother were uncertain about what to believe, but strongly believed in safeguarding their relationship with their grandchildren. He inquired about the reason behind her denied access to the children. She remained silent, refusing to respond. Later, he let her know that I had proposed that he reach that conclusion following our family gathering on Sunday evening. It is evident why you were not included. He insisted that we take legal action against all of you, fearing that our connection with our grandchild would be tainted by their parents' actions. He was the one who provided us with the address of your penthouse. That's how we discovered where to take legal action against you. Based on city records, it appears that you and Glenn's boss are co-owners, which adds weight to his claims. Deborah's frustration reached its peak, leading to an abrupt end to the conversation. This conversation revealed a great deal to him. When faced with the truth, many individuals tend to shy away, avoiding its harsh reality. Thankfully, Friday marked the end of the school week, just in time for spring break. My family and I embarked on a week-long trip to Disneyland, accompanied by the in-laws and my 3 children. We departed on Saturday and returned a week later. The trip had been planned weeks ago, yet there was no possibility of securing a discount on Deborah's ticket. Gordon had successfully convinced Deborah and her attorney to sign a deed for her share of the house instead of her corporation covering a portion of the house expenses during our marriage. Unbeknownst to her, she failed to anticipate that her corporation, which she operated from our home with our residence as its legal address, would be considered a marital asset in the divorce. The Human Resources Department at Walker's has approved the terms of my termination. During my second vacation days, I continued to work for the company. I had until the end of June to contemplate my next steps upon my return from my former assistant, Nora. I discovered that the board of directors had granted me a period of respite before attempting to collaborate with me. They became aware of my immense worth to the company, and inquiries from clients started pouring in, wondering if I would come back. Despite their significant stakes in the corporation, the Walker brothers could both be removed for cause. Furthermore, the board of directors has the power to compel them to liquidate their entire stock. Consequently, the brothers decided to enlist the help of an external firm to carefully assess their choices and handle the resulting outcomes. Gordon reluctantly granted Deborah permission to enter the garage, where we had relocated all of her personal belongings. While we were away, he took the opportunity to make copies of all the business records for her corporation, even going so far as to include the bank records. To add insult to injury, he then had a team of forensic accountants meticulously scrutinize every single expense related to our children's upbringing. From the very beginning with the moment of conception, utilizing a semi-annual interest rate. He calculated the cost of each year, factoring in Steve Walker's involvement in my huckleberry. He then doubled it to account for undue stress and suffering and added interest to bring it to present value. Another lawsuit was filed against him, this time for causing emotional distance. I also took legal action against both brothers for their involvement in disrupting the marital relationship. I bring forth the adultery ground against my wife. As the children arrived home from school, a sudden knock echoed through the silence, disturbing the tranquility of our household. A social worker came to investigate a complaint regarding my supervision of the children. I discovered that the call originated from the attorney representing my soon-to-be ex. In the kitchen, my son guided her to where my daughters and I were quietly collaborating to prepare dinner. As she spoke, the scent of a roast wafted from the oven, filling the air with a somber atmosphere. As I peeled potatoes, I instructed her to search through the cabinets, refrigerator, and freezer. Upon fulfilling the request, I graciously presented her with a cup of coffee and retrieved a pair of sizable mugs. "Madam, excuse me, but I didn't quite catch your name," I murmured. "This is Tricia Marsh, Mr. James." Her response came in a hushed whisper. I requested her to address me as Glenn, and then proposed that if she had a moment, she could conduct interviews with my children at present. Given my expectations of the court's decision, I proceeded accordingly. "If you are available, we would appreciate your presence for dinner, which will be served in an hour." She reluctantly acquiesced. My son Carl guided her into the den, and they conversed while Tina and Terry assisted me following a pleasant dinner. Tricia had a lengthy conversation with my daughters afterwards. Carl and I completed the task of doing the dishes in solemn silence. All of the children neglected their homework, and I was compelled to compose notes elucidating the reasons in case of inquiry. At last, Tricia and I found a moment of solitude to converse. I immediately introduced her to Stephen and Deborah's chat room. Throughout the past 6 years, your ability to perceive anything has remained elusive. Tricia spoke of their meticulously crafted plan. It seems that she desired children while he did not. So they chose you to take care of his children? That's approximately how I imagine it, I whispered. I find myself questioning whether I truly understood the woman I once called my spouse. I'll make a note of the fact that the marriage was filled with deception on her part. One cannot help but ponder if their collaboration in planning the entire affair raises doubts about their affection for children. Tricia spoke softly. They seem to view you as an annoyance, something to be avoided, as if you were inconsequential to them. It seems that your wife's lawyer is attempting to portray you as indifferent towards your children. Everything I have witnessed and experienced in the past few hours contradicts that notion. I was taken aback by the fact that you disclosed to them the truth about Steve being their biological father. It is evident that all three have expressed their desire to remain by your side. Are you listed as the father on their birth certificates? Indeed, I responded. Does it hold any significance? Profoundly. It is evident that you were unaware and have been pretending as if the children were yours all this time. The court will consider this matter of utmost importance when making a decision regarding custody. Tricia offered her email address to facilitate the sharing of the clip, emphasizing its importance for the judge's consideration. Observing situations like yours serves as a reminder of why I have chosen to remain unmarried. I can't alter what has already transpired, I uttered with a faint smile. In addition, I hold a deep affection for my children, regardless of their origins. There is an undeniable connection between them and me, despite the absence of shared genes. Tricia remarked on the perspective, appreciating the observation. I will need to thoroughly examine the residence of your soon-to-be former partner and conduct interviews with both individuals. However, at this moment, the scales are tilted in your direction. The judge will consider that point, which I duly noted in my report. Deborah chose Glenn, Alan James, as the father of her children, yet she denied him the opportunity to truly be a father. Mr. James has acquired legal evidence that Mrs. James was involved in a common law relationship with Mr. Stephen Walker, both before and during their current marriage. We continued our conversation for a few more hours, maintaining a calm and relaxed atmosphere, and made a mutual agreement to stay connected. We exchanged our cell phone numbers in a solemn, hushed manner. She found it rather unexpected that Deborah had not reached out to the children since the day of the application. She made a note of this fact in her records. It was later revealed that she made a call to the detective on her way home. She understood the importance of inquiring about any potential wrongdoing. He mentioned that there had been an incident, but he felt it necessary to reach out to the prosecutor's office to inquire about their willingness to pursue legal action. Fortunately, the following year coincided with an election year, and the district attorney decided to run for office. Unbeknownst to me, I was oblivious to the immense turmoil that my circumstances had spawned. As the sun rose on Tuesday morning, I focused my attention on preparing the children for school. I was taken aback by Trisha's request for me to send the video clip. I reported her to the ADA. I surpassed that. I sent him all the clips via email and informed him that I would provide the remaining content as well. After what felt like an eternity, a response finally arrived, shrouded in an eerie silence. His unexpected call left me taken aback as he recounted the events of last night, involving court orders for wiretaps and more. What he received from me could potentially be utilized as admissible evidence in a criminal court, while safeguarding my anonymity. It is worth noting that all the clips I possessed originated from an email address. The impression was that it originated from an external source. He planned to construct a compelling argument to accuse them both of engaging in extortion. They deceived me and my children year after year. I expressed my desire for the charges to be filed prior to my appearance in divorce court. After the kids arrived, we decided to indulge in some pizza and have an early dinner, as I had a strong desire to catch up on the local evening news. Everything was displayed by the local CBS affiliate. Deborah and Stephen were brought in for questioning immediately after they departed the restaurant following their dinner. Throughout the next hour, I reluctantly attended to the incessant ringing of the phone, offering my apologies and confessing my complete ignorance regarding the ongoing situation. The rest of the week passed without any disruptions, or so it appeared to me. Later on, I discovered my mistake. Last Wednesday, I discreetly entered the office building of a competitor of a former employer. I kept my lunch plans a secret, hidden from prying eyes. The following day, a brief mention appeared in the gossip section of the morning paper regarding my ongoing discussions with upper management about a potential role. I reached out to the author of the article, urging her to revisit the files and consider the possibility that she may have overlooked the name of the twin my wife was accompanied by during her time at the theater. Remember to keep the words date night in mind when you think about them. She inquired about the outcome of my date. I responded that my lawyer had advised me to withhold any comments for now. Then things took a turn for the intriguing. After dropping off the kids at school, I found myself back at our family home on a quiet Friday morning. Deborah stepped out of the car, and as I prepared to park, a sense of stillness filled the air. She wore a simple t-shirt and blue jeans. Her expression reflected a profound sense of sorrow and exhaustion. Her face was bare, a stark departure from the norm. Her eyes were always her constant companion, never leaving her side. As I observed her in that state, it compelled me to inspect my new computer and review the footage captured by the cameras. I made my way to the curb. "Glenn," Deborah whispered, "my parents refused to communicate with me. I was advised to refrain from reaching out until I have resolved the consequences of my actions. I've heard the same thing from my siblings. I yearn to have the privilege of laying my eyes upon my children." "Why?" I inquired. "It seems that you didn't even bother to reach out to them." I reached out to them on that initial Sunday. Everyone expressed their disinterest in conversing with me and abruptly ended the call. It seemed that their emotions had subsided by that point. Deborah admitted, "There is much that needs to be clarified. I will instruct my attorney to communicate with the judge and make the necessary arrangements for supervised visits." "Is there nothing more to discuss?" I stated firmly. I will also make sure to inform him that you have disregarded the court order. I appreciate your gratitude, Deborah responded. We should find a time to have a serious conversation and discuss our thoughts. There is a profound silence between us, filled with a sense of sorrow and animosity. It is evident that you chose to marry me due to Stephen's unwillingness to fulfill his duties as a father and raise his own children. Consequently, you had to seek out someone gullible to assume control. That's why you both selected me, I said firmly. There was a profound sense of betrayal that permeated our entire marriage. It was destined to happen. What you did is beyond the capacity of love. Have you found amusement in my expense? I guess you deserve some congratulations. Ever since I learned about your impending marriage, Stephen, right after our divorce, a heavy silence has settled within me. A profound sense of sadness and resentment fills my heart. Her face remained stoic and unchanged throughout my entire outburst. The weight of her response was palpable. We are no longer in a relationship. Steve was in search of a new dwelling. We were both served with a court order demanding complete separation from one another, as we were being questioned by the detectives until their investigation is concluded. He reluctantly had to relocate to a hotel. Deborah mentioned that there were some complications when her lawyer filed a complaint against you with child services. We were interrogated. We are being forced by the condo management to sell the condo. We were interviewed on Monday with a heavy silence hanging in the air. There was a sense of sadness and animosity that permeated the atmosphere. I described how the interviewer conducted the interview in a private setting, leaving me completely unaware of the information they shared with her. The children have reached an age where they have the power to make their own decisions regarding their living arrangements. They will be staying with your parents this weekend without bidding farewell. I retraced my steps and returned to the house, retrieving my laptop. I made my way to the kitchen, preparing a fresh pot of coffee. I cautiously opened it, the air heavy with a somber silence. I found out that a lot had happened since Monday. Roger's office was utilized by a human resources representative to conduct interviews with individuals at all levels of management. It was sad to learn how many had laughed at me behind my back. Several individuals were dismissed without any clarification by both my lawyer and the prosecutor's office. This could have been a valuable opportunity. It appears that Stephen frequently resorted to unethical methods to conceal his relationship. This was a grave transgression. The board of directors and the CEO convened in the late hours of Thursday, long after the majority of the employees had departed. The board received a comprehensive briefing on the individuals involved, the timing of their actions, and the motivations behind their decisions. Even individuals who were once part of the organization were interviewed. They deliberated over the course of action regarding Stephen and Robert. Stephen's tenure as president of the firm had come to an end, while Roger was facing the prospect of being compelled to leave. The Human Resources Department. I was informed by the director that I had been spotted entering the commercial building. According to her reliable sources, which happened to be gossip columnists, it was rumored that I had been approached by competitors. The CEO smirked and asked, "But can they really offer him the position of president? The Human Resources Department." The individual answered the phone and quietly mentioned that they were en route to check if Nora was still at work. The CEO inquired about the reason behind Nora's role as Glenn's assistant. She possesses an unparalleled understanding of him. She can grasp his thoughts with ease. Glenn. It suddenly struck me. According to state law, a civil relationship that lasted for more than a year was considered to be the same as marriage. I dialed the number and made a call to the DA's office. I shared my concept, and it resonated with him. Deborah could potentially face charges of bigamy once their relationship is proven. I provided them with Gordon's office number and requested that they transmit duplicates of all the documents we possessed. After a long wait, Gordon finally made the call. "Oh no, Glenn. I completely missed this. I should have. This is not great. The divorce proceedings are quite significant, and it seems that Deborah's legal troubles are imminent. According to George Davidson, who is heading the DA's investigation into the two individuals, it was mentioned by you. I have decided to withdraw your divorce case. Instead, we're seeking an annulment due to the legal complications surrounding her marital status." I murmured, resigned to the task of meticulously ironing out the remaining intricacies. "It won't be a challenge with Deborah behind bars." Gordon chuckled. It's ironic how they have managed to evade consequences for their deceitful plotting and strategizing for such a prolonged period. Their actions only serve to weaken themselves, while bolstering the strength of our other suits. Speaking of which, I'll make sure to send you an email with all the files I have backed up. Please contact the DA's office to inquire about the possibility of extending the authorization for the wiretap. If that's the case, it would spare me a significant amount of money. I will make sure to include concrete evidence of the criminal offenses in my next letter. Perhaps not, but I request that she be compelled to cover your legal expenses. Gordon responded with a somber and hushed voice. Glenn, are you truly serious? I have acquired copies of confessions from employees and former employees regarding Steve's efforts to conceal his common-law marriage. I will forward them to you, I murmured to myself. Returning to my laptop, I clicked on a video featuring the CEO, CFO, and the head of HR whispering. There was unanimous agreement that my case was hopeless. Any attempts to resist would prove futile, as the overwhelming attention and fascination it garners would inevitably shatter their reputation. They reached a consensus to aim for a minimal financial settlement in the case. In a matter of minutes, the DA's office and my attorney swiftly shared all the emails I had received. The sound of my cell phone disrupted the silence. Nora was the one. Hello, unfamiliar face. It's been quite a while since we last crossed paths. How are you? I whispered. Glenn, everything is in utter chaos. Every department in HR has been affected. Each person is being interviewed individually. A notary was brought in to witness and verify. We mourn the loss of valuable individuals. Several individuals were let go. Everyone else departed. Nora mentioned that Steve and Robert were summoned following a discussion with the CEO. Security escorted Steven out after allowing him to clean off his desk in silence. Robert received the news that he was being relieved of all his responsibilities until a decision was made about his future. Can you ensure the security of your job? I inquired. In my resignation letter, I made it clear that you were the most suitable candidate to assume my position. That's what I was informed. Currently, I am fulfilling my responsibilities. The board will not reach a final decision until a new president is found. They've only informed me about the individual they're interested in, who has a pressing matter that requires attention. I have a strong feeling that it's you. It was always necessary for Stephen or Robert to seek your approval before taking any action. They painfully discovered that their words often fell on deaf ears, despite their efforts and sacrifices. I prioritized by honing in on the essential elements, disregarding any unnecessary frills that our customers sometimes deemed significant upon receiving the final product. They seemed content with our outcomes. I mentioned that my phone has been constantly ringing since I left, but I am not making any commitments at the moment. Thank you, Glenn. You conveyed the necessary information to me without divulging any specific details. Are you still willing to return? Nora spoke softly. It's difficult to say. I chuckled softly. If you happen to possess an email address for the Gossip Girls, kindly forward it from your personal account. Understood. However, I will transmit it to you using my cell phone. Nora responded via the email account. Unbeknownst to anyone, I discreetly forwarded all the videos to Gossip Girl that were not included in my divorce proceedings. Every minute piece of information she could extract from them would be revealed to the world through print. Her words flowed with a profound stillness, carrying an undertone of sorrow and animosity, leaving no room for ambiguity about her intended recipient. The writer possessed an unparalleled mastery of her craft. As I was preparing for dinner, my son burst into the room, his footsteps echoing through the silence. Father, Mom, the news is on. I entered the room and quietly scrolled back a page to observe the unfolding events. She was being escorted away in handcuffs. During the upcoming newscast, the spokesperson delivered the news that she was facing charges for being married to two men simultaneously, within the confines of the legal system. Could she potentially face imprisonment if she is convicted of that offense? Carl inquired. Indeed, it is deemed a felony in this jurisdiction. What kind of sentence does she receive? It all comes down to the judge's decision, I replied. My father would often say to me, if you are unable to endure the consequences, then it is best to avoid engaging in wrongful actions. That prevented me from making many foolish decisions when I was your age. How much longer will they hold her captive? My son inquired. Once she appears in front of a judge and is able to secure her release by posting bail. I responded. It is possible that she has already been released, depending on the ward she is in. Carl and Carla arrived to collect the children. The boys eagerly anticipated their outing to the monster truck competition on Saturday morning. I longed for a moment of respite from the confines of my home as the girls' impending soccer matches loomed ahead. Carl's words echoed softly, filled with disbelief. Deborah has been apprehended on charges related to multiple marriages. She may face a sentence of up to 10 years depending on the judge's decision. I understand, Dad, and things are only going to deteriorate further before any improvement can be expected, I responded. It appears that her lover resorted to unethical tactics to conceal their relationship. The DA's office received video evidence from individuals who were affected by Steve's actions. I couldn't help but sympathize with Carl as his daughter seemed to be causing him immense pain. Unexpectedly, I found myself in solitude. I shouldn't have been, as I was consumed by a profound sense of sadness and despair, both in my mind and in my heart. I couldn't help but feel a sense of despair as if I had reached the lowest point imaginable. I found myself sitting on the stairs, tears streaming down my face, unable to cease the flow of my emotions. Some individuals argue that depression can be seen as a means of healing or coping. What is hell, if not a place devoid of healing? The human body, with its array of emotions, is a delicate entity. Regardless of our intentions, our efforts seem futile. The release, whenever it may come, is beyond our grasp. After 3 long hours, I found myself sitting in a local park, absent-mindedly tossing unsalted peanuts to the squirrels, feeling lost and unsure of what steps to take next. Divorce is often a profoundly isolating experience that goes unnoticed by many. Those you once considered friends have distanced themselves, seeking self-preservation. Others feel disconnected because they are unsure of what to believe. And then there's the stark contrast between being single and having all your friends married. Being single often leads to feeling like an outsider in various social situations. I was consumed by a profound stillness, completely detached from the world around me. A figure appeared on the other end of the bench, shrouded in an aura of stillness and silence. I observed your presence as you sat there, silently and for an extended period of time. It was evident to me that squirrels have become your closest companions. I pondered if it had reached you and how you were coping with Glenn. Tricia Marsh quietly admitted, I suppose I have discovered. Don't you just despise the blues? Discovering your own path to eliminate them is essential, far more challenging than it sounds. Divorce, as I've come to understand, is a journey that must be faced in solitude. Many of your acquaintances steer clear of you as if it were contagious. I responded, Let's go, I'll treat you to some coffee. Trish firmly stated, No business talk, understood? I concurred. I discovered that Trish was heading out for her routine shopping, so I decided to accompany her. Her preferences in food were quite intriguing to discover. She primarily purchased frozen fast food for herself, as her enthusiasm waned when she found herself without anyone to cook for. I was well aware of this truth regarding my mother. The issue arose when their diet also suffered as a consequence. I had my own shopping cart, and she would witness me selecting a few groceries. As we neared the deli counter, a heavy silence hung in the air. I requested 12 fresh wontons and a 1/4 pound of roast duck from the vendor. I hope you enjoy wonton soup, I replied softly, as that is what I will prepare for dinner if you agree. After washing the vegetables, Trish mentioned that she didn't mind, since we were only a block or 2 from her apartment. She observed as I divided them into equal portions. I informed her that I opted for chicken broth due to the wontons containing a higher proportion of pork than beef, just as I diced the pre-prepared duck. She skillfully retrieved 2 pots simultaneously. I carefully combined water and a pinch of salt, while in a separate container, I poured in a flavorful broth. After the broth reached its boiling point, I carefully incorporated the corn water, chestnut spices, the succulent duck, and the vibrant red, yellow, and green peppers. Finally, I delicately added the snow piece, saving it for the very end. After the water reached its boiling point, I delicately placed the wontons into the pot, allowing them to cook before removing them from the water. I incorporated fresh vegetables into the soup, followed by a delicate drizzle of soy sauce to enhance its flavors. Upon sampling it, I decided to incorporate a touch of garlic powder. At last, the wontons were delicately incorporated into the rest of the food, allowing them to slowly soak up the rich essence of the soup. Then I placed it on the table. Upon tasting the first spoonful, Trish was immediately overcome by a profound stillness. She was already filled with joy. I had prepared a sufficient amount, enough to fill several bowls, with the intention that she could easily reheat the remaining portions. As we spoke, she discovered my preference for preparing my wontons in large quantities and storing them in the freezer. I also shared a technique where you can reduce the amount of broth and incorporate cornstarch as a thickening agent, transforming the dish into a hearty stew that pairs perfectly with rice. Her surprise was evident when she discovered the minimal amount I had spent. I departed from her residence with a sense of contentment. Tricia embraced me for who I truly was. Unexpectedly, it was exactly what I required, through the endless expanse of time. Understanding your true self is crucial for personal growth and success, and today it caused great upheaval. While perusing the morning paper on Sunday, I came across a lengthy article in Gossip Cop detailing the ex-president's relentless pursuit of power and his determination to manipulate his own circumstances. This encompassed a wide range of activities, including promotions, blackmail, and bribery. Is this being investigated? The question lingered at the end of the article, shrouded in an eerie silence. A sense of melancholy and disdain permeated the words, leaving a haunting impression. Why not, if not? I reached out to Trish, inquiring if she would be interested in accompanying me to Coney Island. She agreed. During our initial encounter, we displayed youthful behavior. I inquired about the reason behind her decision to remain unmarried. She expressed how her career had consistently hindered their connection, and the frequent confrontations were severely damaging their relationship. I comprehended this from both perspectives, as my career had deeply impacted me. My relatives and my children were taken aback by my unusually cheerful demeanor when I joined them for Sunday dinner. They all noticed a noticeable change in my demeanor, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. On Monday morning, Nora gave me a call to inform me about an unexpected visit from the chairman of the board of directors. As the dance commences to draw me back, an article published in the Sunday paper served as the catalyst, as it was widely known who she was alluding to. Nora solemnly relayed the news that the board had decided to pursue legal action in order to obtain a court order, compelling Steve and Robert to sell their shares, as they adamantly refused to comply, after losing their job. Surprising was a request from Deborah, who inquired if we could have a discreet meeting in a neutral setting, free from any distractions. I requested a brief respite to contemplate the matter at hand before reaching out to her once more. I reached out to Gordon, who shared with me the idea of finding solace amidst the bustling crowd, where anonymity and fluidity allow for discreet conversations. I unexpectedly encountered Deborah at the Nathan's hot dog stand in the park during the midday hour. We discovered a bench upon which to rest. We took out our cell phones and switched them off, placing them conspicuously on the table. "What is it that you require, Deborah?" I inquired with a chilling detachment. "I would like to inquire if you have any knowledge regarding the individual responsible for causing harm to Stephen." "Is it me?" Deborah said. She stated with a somber expression. "Gossip Girl seems to have a significant influence over the police, subtly guiding their actions. Stephen was forcefully expelled from the corporation he had once established. Robert believes he was also expelled. So you've decided to file for an annulment? I suspect that Stephen's issue stems from the board of directors. I've been informed that it is the source of the information. The police arrive. Through their diligent efforts, they have unearthed valuable information and gathered eyewitness accounts. I regretfully cannot provide any details regarding our current circumstances, as my legal counsel has advised against it." "Why did you even bother agreeing to meet with me?" Deborah inquired. "We find ourselves in a vast, dark pit. Last week I received word that Miss Marks submitted her report to the court. We were informed that all the children desire to remain in your care. Considering the circumstances that Stephen and I are currently dealing with, I must concur. I have received news from another lawyer that I may be confronted with a significant period of incarceration. If the judge hearing the case concurs that, from a legal standpoint, I was married to Stephen. According to him, it all boils down to how one interprets the situation. given the absence of a marriage certificate. I long to share with my 3 children the memory of encountering you today, I responded. They will inquire about my perspective on your appearance. What is their emotional state like? Deborah asked, with a sincere and caring tone. They occasionally have their moments. There are moments when it becomes difficult for me to articulate or respond to their inquiries. I inquired, what questions? Deborah inquired, seeking a path to re-enter their lives. What could have possibly warranted such a severe punishment? I responded quietly. I've pondered that question on numerous occasions. Consider penning a memoir chronicling the unique experience of being in a long-term relationship with 2 individuals simultaneously. Given the level of intrigue surrounding it, this book is destined to be a chart topper. I rose from my seat and departed, enveloped in a profound silence. Did Deborah ever consider anyone else's needs before her own? She resembles an aging canine. It seems that things will never improve. There was no sympathy within me, for I had come to the realization that all my remaining emotions had perished. Upon returning home, I decided to peruse my email, only to be taken aback by the presence of a video featuring myself. Deborah's voice in my chat resonated with a sense of quiet intensity. I sent it over to the gossip columnist, a smile stretching across my face. On Tuesday, the gossip column featured an attention-grabbing headline about Deborah James, a bigamist who plans to write a book titled Tell All, detailing her 8 years as the wife of 2 men. Carl and Carla Matthews were filled with even more anger upon hearing this news, as it seemed that their daughter took pride in her actions. Gordon reached out to me on Wednesday night to share some positive news about how the day in divorce court had unfolded. The judge acknowledged that according to state law, she was already married when we entered into our marriage. The annulment was granted, as we were not legally married. He had some flexibility when it came to dividing all assets. Despite the attorney's persistent resistance, Deborah's case remained unresolved. The judge determined that due to her remote work arrangement, Deborah's corporation could be seen as a shared asset in the context of a marriage. He commanded a decisive victory with a 65-35 split in my favor. Both parties would be responsible for covering their own attorney fees. Deborah's attorney made an effort to persuade him towards a fairer distribution. In his response, he stated that given the omission of her first husband in the divorce proceedings and his involvement in the scam, it would be appropriate to grant Glenn James his rightful share. I reluctantly acknowledged the impact we had inflicted upon her. I was given temporary sole custody of the children until her legal issues were resolved. However, I had no choice but to grant her unfettered access to her children. Stephen Walker was apprehended on Friday, causing a multitude of individuals whom he had wronged in the past to be entangled in a legal predicament that necessitated their cooperation with the district attorney's office. Deborah's life took a turn for the worse until a couple of months ago. She had 2 companions who provided her solace during the dark hours. Now she had lost everything. As I toiled away on the landscaping around the house, a heavy silence fell upon me as the chairman of the board unexpectedly appeared. We must engage in a solemn, quiet conversation. Discuss this chaotic situation, Glenn. Bill Burrows spoke with a somber, hushed voice. I rose to my feet and offered my hand to Bill, which he accepted. I mentioned that it had nothing to do with the firm. Everything revolved around those who were involved. A somber expression crossed his features. I appreciate it. That's exactly what I needed to hear. Let's see if we can find a resolution. We made our way to my kitchen and began discussing my predicament. Both Bill and I acquired some knowledge. His honesty left a lasting impression on me. There was no concealment in his actions. It was somewhat satisfying to learn that, following the legal action taken to compel them to sell their controlling interest, they eventually consented to convert it from common stock to preferred stock. This action effectively stripped them of their voting rights within the company. I expressed my apprehension to him. He meticulously examined each layoff, carefully detailing the reasons and discussing the individuals who would be departing. I mentioned to him that there were a few individuals I would consider rehiring if I were to return, as they found themselves in a similar predicament as myself. It is understandable that individuals cannot be held accountable for actions they were unaware of. The sheer magnitude of his offer to settle the lawsuit on behalf of the firm took me by surprise. I reached out to Gordon, who had a conversation with Bill. I instructed Gordon to comply with the situation. He extended a contract for the presidency of the firm towards me, his expression filled with a profound stillness and a sense of bitterness. Bill remarked that you seem to be waiting for your lawyer to receive the paycheck before taking any action. As you patiently await its completion, please take a look at this. You will find great satisfaction. As he departed, I couldn't help but reflect on the passing moments. We had conversed for more than 3 hours. I reached out to Tricia, hoping she had a moment to spare today. She had no obligations. I inquired if she would be interested in joining my family for a holiday dinner. "What is the reason for this celebration?" she inquired. "The end of my marriage, seeking custody, resolving a legal dispute with my previous employer, and the potential for my eventual return to work." She reluctantly acquiesced. I reached out to the restaurant, inquiring about the availability of their intimate private section. It was devoid of any sound or emotion. I made reservations for 8 o'clock that evening. I reached out to my in-laws, my mom, my sister, and her husband, and they all agreed to come. I requested my sister to bring the children. I reached out to Tricia, informing her that I would be there to pick her up at 7 along the way. We made a brief stop at Tricia's house, where I purchased a combination of red and yellow roses, accompanied by ferns and a lovely vase. This was my way of expressing gratitude for all that she had done. Throughout the remainder of the drive, the children playfully taunted me about my infatuation, openly sharing their admiration for her. I left the children in the vehicle and proceeded to ascend to her apartment, unaccompanied once granted entry. Tricia had a profound appreciation for the beauty of flowers, and her appearance was truly stunning. Tricia Marsh donned a lovely yellow dress, reminiscent of the hues of early summer. Her eyes shimmered with a sense of awe. She had meticulously prepared herself to leave a lasting impact, and she succeeded. Tricia giggled as you presented her with flowers. "Is this what you perceive as our initial encounter?" I struggled to find my words, my voice faltering as I attempted to communicate. Tricia offered a gentle smile as she reached out and grasped my hand. "It has been quite some time since I last witnessed the impact of my presence on someone," Tricia said with a smile. I interpret that as an affirmative response. That moment remains etched in my memory, haunting me relentlessly. We entered the vehicle. The children were enthusiastically discussing my victory in gaining custody from her. I informed her about the other guests attending the party. Tricia replied, "It's quite interesting that I'm meeting family on our first official date." Tammy, my oldest daughter, who followed in the footsteps of her maternal grandmother, Carla, expressed her appreciation for the flowers my daddy purchased for her. Tricia then shared a picture of them, which became her home screen. As a result of the heavy traffic, we arrived 10 minutes behind schedule. I had pre-ordered 2 bottles of one of their most popular items. A somber silence enveloped the room as I sipped on a glass of champagne, contemplating the upcoming introductions. Terry, my youngest daughter, informed me that this woman was Tricia Marsh, our father's girlfriend. Tricia and I couldn't help but let out a chuckle. It created an atmosphere that lingered throughout the entire evening. During dinner, I conveyed the court order and its rulings to everyone present. Later, I discussed the ongoing resolution of the legal case involving the company and the recent removal of Robert and Stephen Walker from their leadership roles. The last bit of news I received was an offer for the role of president. Tricia recounted the circumstances of our meeting, where she, the social services representative, had called in to investigate a complaint against me. Carl rose to his feet, clutching a glass of champagne. "Glenn, considering everything you've endured, we were concerned that you would exclude us from your life, leaving us feeling abandoned and isolated. Instead, you brought us together. Well done. You are finally receiving the recognition that is long overdue." Here's to Glenn for being true to himself and to Tricia for bringing joy back into his life. As we were all preparing to depart, Carl quietly pulled me aside and informed me that we would be taking the kids for the weekend. We'll have our children make a quick visit to collect whatever we require, move forward and focus on the future. Embark on the journey of creating a fresh existence. I inquired of Tricia if she would care to partake in a dance. We embarked on our journey. I left her at 3 in the morning, with plans to retrieve her at noon. We found ourselves spending the majority of the weekend together, culminating in a Monday morning spent walking the kids to school. I glanced at the offer for the first time. It exceeded expectations. My previous salary included built-in stock bonuses that were awarded based on certain conditions. These bonuses gave me the choice between receiving cash or common stock. Bill had already put his signature on it. I reached out to the business attorney and scheduled a meeting to thoroughly review the legal terms, ensuring that I hadn't overlooked anything. During the morning hours as I attended to my laundry, as I opened the door, a heavy silence hung in the air. A soft, almost inaudible knock echoed through the room. I was taken aback by the sight of a small, delicate Asian woman. As the doorbell rang, I couldn't help but feel a sense of annoyance. The presence of a Jehovah's Witness was the last thing I wanted in that moment. She went by the name of Lin Wang, but was more famously recognized as Gossip Girl. After introducing myself, I extended an invitation for her to come inside. "Which beverage would you prefer, coffee or tea?" I inquired of her. She responded, "If you could provide a strong shot of gin, that would be acceptable." I found it rather premature, I mused. But that was acceptable. I offered her one and, being polite, joined her, quietly sipping my beer. "Excuse me for interrupting, Mr. James," she murmured, "but I would like to share the video with you," encouraging her to proceed. I discovered that it was a dialogue between Deborah and myself. She then revealed a conversation where my wife confessed that she had never intended to write a book. She desired a retraction in order to initiate an appeal in her divorce case. "Mr. James, I would greatly appreciate your perspective before I make a decision on what to do," explained Lin Huang in a somber and reflective manner. I requested her assistance in activating the recording equipment and informing me of the appropriate moment to commence. She stated, "Mrs. Wang, I grant you the authority to include my name. What you revealed to me is merely a fragment of our exchange on that particular day. We touched upon various topics throughout the 18 years of our marriage, such as our children and the process of our divorce. It has become evident to all of us that every word she spoke to me was nothing but falsehoods, due to the events that have transpired. It is difficult to affirm the veracity of everything she says. I recounted, as every word she spoke to me seemed to be a fabrication. May I inquire, were you also deceived by her? It's undeniable that she was not truthful, and that's what adds a touch of sadness to it. Considering the lack of value I held, it seems that she didn't deserve the effort of deceit either. May this provide clarity for you?" She responded affirmatively and switched off the device. "I believe I will utilize my column to conduct a small survey. I will transcribe our conversation verbatim. Here is our conversation. We are done. I'll inquire of the readers their beliefs." "I eagerly anticipate reading it," I said with genuine sincerity. In my father's eyes, it was a firm conviction that providing a man with ample rope would inevitably lead to his own downfall. Deborah was confirming his beliefs. It consumed her thoughts, the relentless focus on the financial losses. I sensed it. It's possible that Mrs. Wong also noticed. My ex reached out and mentioned her desire to take our kids out for dinner. I mentioned that they would all return home shortly after 4 p.m., and she should come over then. She arrived not long after that. My oldest daughter opened the door. I listened attentively to her. She has arrived, our former mother. But all I could perceive was the echoing footsteps. I remained in the kitchen, unmoving and silent. I had no intention of being accused of meddling in my ex's relationship with our children. After a short while, the sound of the front door shutting reached my ears. Soon after, my children entered the room. Tammy softly whispered, "It's too soon, Daddy," conveying a sense of sorrow and resentment. It simply is. What she has done to all of us is simply unacceptable. We conveyed that message to her. I mentioned that any action I took against a friend would result in Terry suggesting that I might permanently lose their friendship. "And you expect us to continue living as if nothing has occurred?" I expressed my strong disagreement to her in no uncertain terms. Carl responded. She inquired, "Who granted you the authority to utter such words?" I spoke to her, my grandfather. I inquired about everyone's preference for dinner, suggesting McDonald's as an option. Consensus was reached by all. Once the kids had completed their homework, I reached out to Trisha and recounted the events that had transpired. She mentioned that I shouldn't have been caught off guard. Despite your efforts to conceal it, your pain was evident to them. Stephen appeared to be deeply affected by his legal troubles. He instructed his legal team to reach a settlement at the lowest cost. Robert chose to step down and pursue legal action against me for the harm inflicted upon his face. On that Friday, following my attorney's revisions, I completed the necessary paperwork and reached out to Bill. We decided to make an announcement the following Friday. I informed the gossip girl about it. My mother made the decision to take the kids for the weekend. Trisha was preoccupied with another case. In my spare moments, I dedicated myself to locating a select group of individuals who I believed were crucial to my plans for reorganization. They agreed to return once I presented them with my new contract, which stated that the head of human resources must resign or be ousted from their position. It was discovered that they had tried to reach out to her, attempting to caution her about Stephen's actions, yet their pleas fell on deaf ears. Reading Mrs. Huang's comments about the exact conversations Deborah and I had was quite interesting. She inquired about the opinions of her readers. As she reflected on her encounter with these two individuals, she couldn't help but question what Deborah saw in Glenn. He exudes an aura of warmth and compassion, the type of person any woman would desire. Deborah is a relentless seeker, constantly pursuing excitement and dominance from those who can never provide the fulfillment she longs for. She will conform to your expectations as she lacks self-awareness and struggles with her own identity. She conceals her true self from everyone she encounters, and her facade goes beyond mere cosmetics. Deborah James and Stephen Walker had a mutually exploitative relationship. That is what sustained their relationship. As I read this book, I felt a profound sense of stillness and sorrow. On Monday, I reached out to a service that was seeking a housekeeper for a Monday through Friday schedule. Given my increased salary, I am now able to afford it. I reached out to the chairman of the board of directors and informed him about my findings. As he discovered the veracity of their words, she was released that evening while conversing with Trisha. I inquired if she was acquainted with individuals who experienced exhaustion from their profession. She questioned me, seeking an explanation. I mentioned that I was in search of a human resources professional who had experienced a job loss at the company. She mentioned that she was acquainted with two individuals who were highly suitable for that particular line of work. I requested that she arrange for both of them to reach out to me in the morning of the final Friday in May, with the presence of the media. The chairman of the board announced my appointment as the new president. I informed the media that our company had faced a significant staffing challenge and was now taking a leap forward by assembling a fresh team. I introduced the two new vice presidents, recounting their departure as a result of the actions of the previous management team. I emphasized the importance of integrity and honesty for all of our employees moving forward. I proudly presented the new head of human resources, highlighting our unique decision to hire a former social worker for this role. Our intention is to elevate our moral and mental standards to unprecedented heights. I requested Nora Richards, my former acquaintance, to rise. I announced with a heavy heart that Nora Richards has been appointed to the newly created position of Vice President, responsible for overseeing all aspects of commercial production on our production team. Nora was met with a resounding applause. Thus, it became evident that dedication and hard work held significance. Deborah was convicted of the bigamy charge and is currently serving a sentence of 2 years minus 1 day. Stephen has resolved all legal disputes and is currently serving a 10-year prison sentence. Robert is once again challenging his loss for the 3rd time. Trisha Marsh and I are still dating, and the kids are urging us to decide on a wedding date. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chap doesn't cheat on you. And go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.